So it is official. I have entered the HYROX Pro category in January 2026 in Amsterdam with my good friend and training partner, Matt. And truth be told, the former bodybuilder in myself cringes a lot inside to even say that, especially knowing it stands for Hybrid Rockstar. But honestly, I want to do this episode, one, because I'm going to get a lot of hate from a bodybuilding diehard clients and fans, but secondly, to actually give you the reasons as to why have I actually made this decision, because honestly, rewind the clock even a couple of years, I would never ever think this would ever entertain me or even consider doing it. Like, if you're a bodybuilder, you know there's a little bit of like a rivalry where bodybuilders slate CrossFitters and vice versa, a little bit of banter. And I was always one of those. I was always like, never do that, CrossFitter, that type of vibe. And of course, I am now one of them. I have gone to the dark side. So I want to tell you the reasons throughout this, because you might be at a crossroads in your own training and you might want to change up just like I have. You might want to set some new goals that push you in different ways. You might want to look after your health, your longevity, which I think CrossFit does very well. So I'm going to give you the reasons that I have actually made this decision. Not out of a rash decision of, let's just jump on the bandwagon, but let's actually think logically as to what I am trying to create, which is I'm trying to become mentally and physically the highest performer I can possibly be. And I think HYROX translates incredibly well into that. And I honestly have such a level of respect for it that I never used to have, because I actually tried it. And then when I tried it, I was like, holy shit, this is incredibly hard. So the first thing I want to talk about is discipline. And bodybuilding, of course, requires huge amounts of discipline, but so does HYROX. But this is where they kind of contrast with each other. So bodybuilding for me is incredibly disciplined, and I'd actually say way more disciplined than HYROX, because it's so consuming. You have to be so OCD with your nutrition, your training. I think outside of the gym, it is way more onerous, especially from a dietary standpoint, and running your body into the ground on super low calories and things like that. So I would say the discipline element of bodybuilding outside of the gym is greater. However, the HYROX discipline really comes into play in those sessions, because honestly, if you have not tried one, go and try one. I am currently just doing some simulators, and I've been doing a lot of the watt bike work of doing tempo intervals. And believe me, when you have got 40 minutes of absolute torture, it's like doing a leg extension set for 40 minutes straight. It is unbearable. And I love mental performance. I love pushing myself mentally. I love becoming more and more disciplined. And not that I find bodybuilding training easy, because it's hard in a very, very different way. But HYROX, I do think, is significantly more mentally challenging when you're in that moment. And the reason for that is when you've got 30, 40, 50 minutes left and your legs are burning, your heart is pounding out of your chest, what happens is you have that voice in your head, that other part of your subconscious that says, stop, you don't need to go this hard, maybe just let off, maybe just give yourself a break for 30 seconds. And you have constantly got to talk yourself out and say, no, keep going. And you've got to override that sort of horrible voice in your head that's trying to make things easier, that voice of comfort. You have to keep telling it no. And that mental battle in your head is genuinely crazy, but I almost secretly love it as well. And I think genuinely, when you practice that level of discipline in the moment, nothing will improve you from a mental standpoint. That discipline, I believe, is the highest form of self-respect and self-love, because what we are doing is we're sacrificing the current moment, so the pain that you're feeling on that certain interval, that certain session, whatever it is, for your future self. So you know that this short-term discomfort is going to make you a better version in the future, whether that's from a physical standpoint, a mental standpoint, cognitive, from a discipline, but whatever it is, we are always doing it as a sacrificial obligation. We're sacrificing the current for a better future for ourselves. And we know if we don't make those current sacrifices and we don't practice that discipline in the moment, we're therefore going to hand those burdens and those problems to our future self. So that's why it's a form of self-respect, because you are looking after after the future version of you. And with this level of discipline, of course, we're going to build the brain in real time. And I love this theory. And ever since I understood that the brain was what we call neuroplastic, and we can change the brain and create new patterns and formation in the brain over time, I become addicted. Just like I was with bodybuilding and building muscle, I become addicted of training the brain and just making it stronger. And when you understand the concept of neuroplasticity, that your brain can adapt over time, and you understand about the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, the part of your brain that you can hypertrophy, the more discomfort you embrace and the more that you do things you don't want to do, the more addictive it becomes, because it feels like it has purpose, like it genuinely does. And like, I come off those sessions, like the ones where I'm like pushing zone 5 cardio for like 10 minutes plus, and I genuinely think, oh my God, my brain is fried by the end of it. I feel physically and mentally drained, and there's just something so liberating towards that, of like how good you feel after it. If I was to break it down to points, like this would be point number 1. Like, the discipline that the training requires, I think, develops you so well, not just from a physical standpoint, but from a mental and a cognitive standpoint too. So point number 2 would be health and longevity that HYROX presents. Because let's be real, and this isn't bad mouthing bodybuilding, we know that bodybuilding is not the healthiest of sports. When I was pushing myself to the absolute extremes, like I was taking my body weight up post-show 30 kilo over the course of 3 months. The blood pressure changes, the heart rate variability, the sleep apnea that give me, pushing food, pulling back, starving myself, dehydrating for shows, the PDs, the drugs, like all of it. It's not healthy. That's not slaying bodybuilding, that's just facts. And anyone who competes does know that. When you take it to the extreme that you do for competitive scenarios, it is not healthy. So I think there's definitely been a wide global shift towards this of health and longevity, and people being way less fixated solely on just what they look like, but having more focal and more focused towards just improving themselves from a physiological standpoint. And what I mean by that is your health markers. So things like your resting heart rate, your blood pressure, your heart rate variability, your VO2 max. I've just bought this Whoop band a couple of weeks ago, and this tracks all of this data as I'm getting into performance. And it's really opened my eyes to be like, wow, like I want to actively improve my health. And I think these trackers and like wearable devices have really brought that into the public eye. And I think as a coach and educator and the coach creator, I want to teach coaches to do that. And it's not a case of people pivoting just to become now performance coaches, but it's about teaching physique and fitness-based coaches to now lean into this, to actually use more data and more tracking. Because I certainly know a lot of coaches who will just track the macros, the training, the progressive overload of training, but there's very little emphasis towards, are our health markers improving? And I think that is the most valuable thing you can do as a fitness professional, a fitness coach, is track the metrics of actual health markers that are going to promote longevity, even extend health and lifespan, because that is really what fitness should all be about. It shouldn't just be about the vanity and the aesthetics. It should be about, are we actually getting fitter over time? Are we improving ourselves from the internal and a health metric standpoint? So I think by shifting into the HYROX space, it's made me a lot more aware of like these things, because if I am to become a better athlete at endurance, I need to improve VO2. I need to reduce my resting heart rate. I need to increase my heart rate variability. Like all of these things I need to monitor to make sure that I am getting healthier, but I'm also able to perform better because my health markers are improving. So it gives you just a whole level of consciousness towards that and that shift. And as I said, this isn't about shifting your whole business. It's about maybe now layering in different health and data tracking metrics. So now if you have clients who are coming to you for a physique transformation, no longer is this just about solely, here's a physique transformation, here's how you look before and after. Here's how you look before and after, and here are all of the benefits that you've had from a health standpoint too, and maybe blood work. So I think that is a big shift for me that we're seeing globally now, that people are way less bothered just about the vanity and way more bothered about the actual health metric improvements too. So that's the second thing that really brought me to this, was I've stepped back from bodybuilding now, and fortunately I've got out of it relatively scar-free. I've got no long-term health issues. I've been able to downsize without any issues, and I'm very fortunate, and some people aren't. But if I can now shift towards this, it's going to be one of the first periods of my life where I'm actually actively trying to become healthier from the inside. You can't put a price on that. I'm 30 next year, so I guess it's a perfect time as I'm exiting my 20s to actually go, do you know what? Let's start thinking about extending your lifespan and not just battering yourself into the ground. So the next thing I would say is community and connection. Over the last few years, I think everyone has seen this. We have seen a massive, massive shift with the rise of social media, especially now with AI, remote working post-COVID. Everyone is increasingly becoming more and more disconnected. Like on a personal level, I work from home, I manage fitness clients, I do my coaching education, I look after team calls, but like I don't speak to one single person in a day unless I go to the gym and maybe have a session or train with my training partner. But I could go a full day without having one-on-one human interaction in person, genuinely. And that's not normal. Like, rewind 50 years ago, that is unheard of. Human connection was everything because we didn't have we didn't have fucking mobile devices. So by saying this, I think HYROX is very, very focal towards community building because it's team. It's like I'm going to this HYROX event and the community around it is just completely different. I'm going to be attending group classes as part of my training. I'm going to be training with a training partner. We're going to be going through it together. Whereas if you compare and contrast that to bodybuilding's a very solitary sport. Of course, I've had a lot of support over the years from clients, supporters, sponsors, and I'm very grateful for that. But the blunt reality is 99% of the work you do on your own. You know, you do when no one is watching, you're in the gym, you're on your own, headphones in, hood up. It is you. And on stage, you know, it is you. The responsibility lies 99% on your feet. Whereas with HYROX, there's a huge community element. And I think, as I said, with the shift that we're seeing of the 21st century and people becoming increasingly more disconnected, I really feel like human connection is the new superpower, both from a personal fulfillment standpoint, because AI is going to replace so much in the years to come. And I think community is going to be the one thing that we should all come back to. And if you can build something that you love around that, i.e. a hobby like HYROX, and build something that you already do in your day-to-day routine, which is training, but now you actually bridge that gap of having community and training together, I just think that's super, super powerful. And I know this from last year when I started kickboxing. That was one of the things that I loved about it. It wasn't just the kickboxing itself, it was going to classes, it was being around like-minded people, it was sharing experiences, bringing ourselves into that present, because nothing else matters in the moment. When you're speaking to people, you're in a community vibe, you're not worried about social media, you're not worried about things that happened last week or at work, you're eternally present. And I think that community dynamic and community element is massive. That's why next week I'm hosting my own team event, and we're going to be doing breath work, we're going to be in ice baths, and we're going to have a good meet up, some food together, a presentation forum, and it's just going to be so nice to connect like-minded people all in the same room. That's what we are missing in modern day society. So that was one of the things that really drew me towards HYROX, is this community element that, I'll be honest, I've been missing as someone who works behind a laptop 12, 15 hours a day and doesn't see anyone, and the only communication I have is via a voice note or via Zoom. I do crave just having more connection, and I think this is going to allow me to do that and feel a huge amount of fulfillment from it. The next point is more for coaches. I don't want to scaremonger and say fitness coaching is going forever, but obviously I coach over 100 coaches now in the Coach Creator, I have many people through the course, and I have a really good understanding of what direction I believe the fitness industry is going in. As I touched on before, there's a huge shift towards health, longevity, human connection, community building, but also people don't just want macro plans and training plans anymore, because the blunt reality is, if that's all you offer as a coach, you can get that on ChatGPT. Clients can go and do that. Clients can also now use all these peptides, all these GLPs to drop body fat. So really, if that's your superpower as a coach, is to help people drop body fat, gain muscle, and give them a diet plan, AI can do it all now. GLPs can help with the fat loss, to help with the hunger. That cannot be your only selling point. I think in the years to come, if that's all you offer as a fitness coach, I don't think you will have a job. That's not to scare people, that's just the truth. So from a coaching standpoint, certainly the direction that I'm now giving people is, how do we expand our skill set as the industry shifts, just like every industry shifts over time? How can we start to change our service offering? How can we start to layer in the things that are becoming more valuable? Because as one thing becomes more accessible, i.e. macro plans, training plans, all of this stuff, If that's more accessible, it becomes less valuable. However, the benefit to that is other things then become more valuable. And what are those things? As I've been speaking about, it is monitoring health metrics and health performance markers, not just monitoring vanity metrics of how someone looks and what the body fat is. It's yes, of course, we want to transform physiques, but we want to add years to people's lives. We want to make sure that they're seeing improvements from a health marker standpoint. Because if you've got a client who maybe has not had a huge body weight shift or a huge visual transformation in the first few weeks of working with you, but you can go, do you know what? Look at all these things. Your resting heart rate has come down, your heart rate variability, your sleep has improved, your VO2 max, all of these other variables. All of a sudden, you're like, you are transforming. It's just not presented yet visually. So not only will it help provide a better service and provide more retention for your clients, it will give you a huge different selling point. So I think that is one element, is the monitoring of physical performance markers that are orientated towards health. And I think the second part of that is more to do with mental frameworks. So not now just giving people the training and the macros, is how can we help people level up from a mentality standpoint and more from a mental performance? How can we put frameworks in place that goes way beyond surface level check-ins? How can we ask different questions? How can we build more personal relationships so people buy into us more and we create that human connection that goes beyond what we stereotypically knew as a coach-client relationship? So again, it's how can we bridge all of these things together and then layering in community elements for your team of clients. So if you are a coach, how can you now incorporate more community? How can you incorporate mental frameworks? How can you incorporate physical performance metrics and track that data for clients that goes way beyond the normality alone? And that's how you'll differentiate yourself as a fitness coach. So for me, from a business aspect, this is essentially why I want to pick HYROX. From a business stance, it makes sense because I am passionate about mental and physical performance. That is what HYROX is. That is the definition of HYROX. It's bridging those two things together and layering in human connection too. So I think if the future of coaching is going to be very, very much HYROX. And as I said, this isn't you just going, oh, I'm going to become a HYROX coach. No, it's you continue to be a fitness coach, but you understand more about the other aspects that are going to make coaches what I call future-proof against AI, because you're going to give yourself so much more leverage and become so much more valuable to your clients just by diversifying and obviously going into other means. So that would be a huge point. And I know that's a little bit more business orientated, but I think it's really worth mentioning, especially for myself, because if I'm going to teach other coaches to do that, I need to walk the walk and I need to have done that myself. And that's something I'll always pride myself on. I'm not going to teach someone else to teach physical and mental performance if I've never done it before. So I need to walk the walk and understand what it exactly entails and how to guide people through it, and something I'm going to be rolling out with my own existing fitness. And then the final point I want to touch on is identity. And this is more of a personal one, I think, for me. And other people may feel the same if you've been a bodybuilder. My identity has been bodybuilding. And I've spoken about identity a lot on here and how my identity has had to shift over the last 18 months through the transformation that I've been through. Because I was just known as Joe the bodybuilder, Joe the coach, and I didn't want to be known as that anymore. I want to be able to educate people. I want to be able to speak about mindset. I want to help people. I want to inspire people. I just want to become more than that stereotype. And I think by stepping completely into a new domain and going on a different path, it allows me to change my identity and my persona around me. And not that bodybuilding is a bad one, but I do think it's very, very niche. And I almost do think if we look at the trends of what the world is doing right now, we are going more towards mental and physical performance. And HYROX is a prime example of that. If you look at the demand of HYROX 5 years ago compared to bodybuilding, was probably way bigger, way more favorable. Now, there's not even a comparison. When I went to book my HYROX the other week, every single event was booked for the next 6 months. It is the new hype. And I think rightfully so, because of all the reasons I spoke about. So for me on a personal level, I do want to change that identity where people just associate me and the coach creator to coaching bodybuilding people and making fitness coaches that just worry about training macros and physical transformations. What I want to be doing through Coach Creator now is teaching people how to become the most well-rounded, best possible coaches they can be by integrating physical performance, mental performance, community layering, and all of the traits that it requires to be an amazing fitness coach as well. So that's the way I see it. I see fitness coaching as the foundation. And if you are to level up and become a better coach, you need to be able to diversify. You need to be able to almost layer all of these additional value adds onto your service itself. And I think that is exactly how you'll future-proof yourself as a coach against AI moving forward. If you're a client, I think that's what you should be looking for in a coach as well. Someone that doesn't just look after your physique, but looks after your headspace and looks after your health and longevity and can add years to your life, because really, that is what fitness should truly be about. And I believe that in itself is what I call the future of coaching. As you can see, it's not just for a personal reason, it's not just for physical, not just for mental, it's not just for business, it's not just for education. There's a whole host of reasons as to why I've made this decision. And that's why I wanted to do a long video of this, not just put an Instagram post out there and say, oh, I'm doing HYROX, and it just looks like I'm jumping on a bandwagon to get a bit of attention. Like, I've thought long and hard about this, and it's just something that I feel so compelled to do. And anyone who's followed Built Different, you'll probably understand that it's everything I speak about kind of bundled into one hobby, if you will, because truly it is mental and physical performance combined. So throughout the rest of these episodes, I am going to be documenting my journey. I'm going to be doing vlogs. I'm going to be recording my training. I'm going to be documenting my client Matt and how he goes through it, and also how we're going to diversify his business and his niche towards HYROX coaching as opposed to just physique alone. So it's going to be really interesting for you guys to follow along, because this is a huge step for me in a very, very different direction, but I can't wait to just document it and everything that goes into it. And hopefully we do very well. However, I don't really know what I'm getting myself in for. And there was no spaces in the normal open class, so I will be doing the HYROX Pro as well. Wish me the best of luck. And if you are a coach listening to this right now, and you do want to go beyond just the aesthetics and start tracking your clients' performance metrics, then you will find a link below to my free resource that will help you do exactly that. Enjoy.